Hello everyone. Today we will discuss the paints. First of all, the introduction about the paints. The final finishing of all surfactants such as the oils, sealings, woodworks, metalworks, etc. is necessary to make them look good and also for their protections from the moistures, termites, etc. So, according to the nature of the surface and the finishing requires, the surface should be coated with the different types of the paints. Paint is a solution of the pigment in water, oil or the organic solvents that is used to cover the wood or metal articles either for the protection or for the appearance. For different surfaces, the different types of the paints from the different companies are used. Some of the leading companies of the India are Asian Paints, Nerolac Paints, Burger Paints, and Nippon Paints, etc. Here is the two main types of the paints: interior paints and exterior paints. In interior paints, it includes or it is applied onto the walls, metals, or on the woods. Or on the walls, it includes the distempers, lusters, enamels, and emulsion paints. And all, on the metals, the enamel paints are used. And on wood, the wood finish paints are used. And the second type is the exterior paints. Exterior paints are included the emulsion, textures, and cements. The classification of the paints. Classification by the curing mechanism. Then its type is the baking or air dry paints are used. Solvent for the paint, that is water based or solvent based paint is used. Then paints are classified by the function of its system components. For that system, different system components or functions, the primer, sealer, undercoat or the finishing coat paints are used. And for the resin components, the epoxy, alkyd, acrylic, polyurethane, etc. These paints are used for these resin components. Classification of the paints. These paints are the classified under the various factors that are the on the basis of the base which are used. In the paints, the oil paints, alkyd paints, latex paints, epoxy paints, these are the different types of the paints. In oil paints, which is utilize a drying oil that oxidizes and hardens to form a tough elastic film when exposed to thin layer of air. Second is the alkyd paints that have as a binder an alkyd resin such as the chemically modified soy or the linseed oil. Next is the latex paint that have a binder and acrylic resins that coalesces as water evaporates from the emulsions. Next is the epoxy paints that have an epoxy resins as a binder for increase the resistance to corrosion, abrasion and the chemicals. On the basis of the properties, paints are distributed into the four types: rust inhibiting paints and primers. These are the especially formulated with anti-corrosive pigments to prevent or to reduce the corrosion of the metal surfaces. Fire retardant paints. These paints are especially formulated with silicone and polyvinyl chloride or other substances to reduce the flame spread of the combustible materials. Heat resistant paints. These paints are specially formulated with silicone resins to withstand high temperatures. In tumescent coatings, these paints, when exposed to the heat or the fire, it swells to form a thick insulating layer of the insert layer of inert foam that retards the flame spread and the combustion. Here is the distempers. Distempers means are durable and economical water-based paints. The major constituents of distemper includes the coloring agents as well as chalk and lime. They have been the main painting substances for the decades and the still are excellent budget painting solutions. Even the distempers now used are more varied and have special properties. Emulsion paint. In emulsion paints, these are the superior quality of the paints formed by the mixing oils or the waters and emulsifying agents to prevent the combination separating. They have much better ease of applications, are washable and have a greater overall decorative appeal. It not only do they have the higher coverage than the enamels and the distempers, they are mostly washable and can be easily applied on a concrete and stucco surfaces. As per the interior and the exterior painting requirements, both the interior and exterior emulsion paints are exist. You can see in above picture there is the distemper painting and in below there is the emulsion paint. Next is the texture paints. In these are used to create to desired visual effects on the walls. By the use of the brushes, rollers, putinelles, trowels, and the other applications, a variety of patterns can be created. Other paints can be applied on the textures to create the desired effects. Sometimes the texture paints are tinted prior to applications, giving the desired colors. This texture paints also helps in covering the undulations and leveling surfaces. You can see into the above picture. Cement paint. To give a new look for the concrete and other cement based materials, cement paint is the perfect answer. It is a special paint coating made for the masonry and cement based materials, which includes the concrete, mortar, concrete block, and stucco. It is not only it adds to the aesthetics of the walls but also provides a waterproofing coating and can supplement the role of putty. Enamel paints. Enamel paints are hard, washable, and usually glossy paints. They can be oil based or the alkyd based, and it comes in a several shades from the eggshell or low luster to stain, semi-gloss, and high gloss. They find the application not only on metal surfaces but also on interior walls and wooden surfaces. Primers. These primer paints are base coats applied to the surface to improve the adhesion of the subsequent coats of paints or the varnish. Next is the sealers paints. These are the base coats applied to the surface to reduce the absorption of the subsequent coats of the paints or varnish or to prevent the bleedings through the finish coat. Wood finishes. Wood finish paints are different from the usual oil paints and are formulated specifically for applications on wooden surfaces. They have better capacity of the adhering to the wooden surfaces and enhancing the appeal of the wooden textures. This includes the wood sealers, varnishes, preservatives, etc. This wooden finishing is also done by the polishing the surfaces, which is formed by the following ingredients. These ingredients are spirit, lacquers, then chalk powder, polish colors, turkey umber, raw sienna, burnt sienna, kajal, and pewdy. Then the types of the finishes. There is the matte paints. Matte color is the most common of interior wall paints. There is no shine or sheen to the finish. It is easy to apply, although it can often take more than a single coat to create a good solid color. This matte paint can be applied with the brush or the roller and works well on the walls that have imperfections. On the downside, matte paint is easily marked, although some mark can be removed with a damp damp cloth. Matte paint needs the regular retouching. Next is the satin or pearl paints. In this is the very durable in terms of the washability and resistance to moisture. It will offer the user the full protection on their walls from the dirt, moisture, stains, etc. And so it is ideal for areas like the bathrooms and the kitchens. But will show even more imperfections on walls because of its strong shine. Next is the semi-gloss and gloss paints. In semi-gloss, it is another common interior paints. It's more commonly used on the trim rather than the walls. It offers a hard finish. It is suitable to heavy use and it is easy to clean with just soap and waters. And gloss paints, that is apart from the matte paints, gloss paints is the most common interior wall paint. It is the one you can use on most walls, although some people use it sparingly on the surfaces and prefer to use it on woodwork because it's high shine. This gloss paints shows up all the imperfections on a wall and achieving an even coverage on a wall will often need more than a single coat of paint. Then defects of the paints. Bleeding can be occurs by the on the paints. This bleeding means the discoloration of the paints film due to the pigment seeping to the surface from the undercoats or the gum from nose in timber. Next defect of the paint is blistering, that is the formation of small areas of the swelling on the surface caused by the painting in the direct heat of the sun or from trapped moisture seeping through the surface or from the corrosion sites. Next is the efflorescence. Formation of a series of open blisters in a paint films due to the soluble salts rising to the surfaces from the brick, plasters and cement objects. Flecking, which is occurs when the paint peels away from the surface due to a crack or joint in the film. It may be caused by the use of an unsuitable undercoat or the shrinkage or expansion of the surfaces. Here is the different mild ways, then chalking, sagging. These are the defects of the paints. Here is the some paint composition. You can see some there are the some pigments, their constituents, and here comments are here. Then the characteristics of the paints. Paint should possess the good spreading power, that is the maximum area of the surface should be covered by the minimum quality of the paint such that it can be the paint should be fairly cheap and economical. The paint should be such that it can be easily and freely applied on the surfaces. This paints dries in reasonable time and not too rapidly. Its color is maintained for a long time. This is the most important characteristics of the paint, and it also a hard and durable surfaces form. This paint should not affect the health of workers during its applications, and it does not affected by the weathering actions of the atmosphere. This paint should possess the attractive and pleasing appearance, and the surface coated with paint should not show the cracks when the paint dries. These are some characteristics of the paints. Then ingredients for the paints are binder, vehicles, resins are here, and some commonly used solvents also here. The main purpose of the solvent is to dissolve the polymer and adjust the viscosity of that paints. It facilitates the paints applications, its drying and the formation of the regular paint film, and it is acts as a carrier for the non-volatile components in a paint. During the applications and the drying, the solvent evaporates to spread the heavier oils. For examples, the linseeds, as in oil-based interior house paints, a thinner oil is required. Pigment fillers, pigment or fillers which are used into the paints. You can see here different additives are also used into the paints. Some advantages of the paints. These paints which protects the surface from the weathering effects of the atmospheric and the action by the other liquids, fumes and the gases. It prevents the decay of the wood and the corrosion in the metal. Paints is used to give the good appearance to the surfaces. Paints which decorative effects may be created by the painting, and the surface becomes hygienically good, clean, colorful and attractive. Paints which are provides a smooth surface for easy cleaning. Here is the some processes of the painting: surface preparation, then primering coating, next is the putty coat, second primer coat, then finish coat. These are the some steps of the painting. Thank you.